Welcome everyone to the Aspen City Council meeting of August 25th. It is our regular meeting starting at 5 p.m. and this month is almost over. So I am calling the meeting to order, and Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Councillor Benedetti. Here. Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth. No. Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Richards.
Here. Councillor Guth is traveling and will not be joining us this evening, but that's easy enough. We do not have a super long agenda. We have no scheduled public appearances tonight, so we will move on to citizens' comments and petitions. This is a time for any citizen to address the City Council on matters not on tonight's agenda, and you will have about 3 minutes if you want to identify yourself for the record. And come on up, Father. Why don't you go first? You have about 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am the father of four daughters. I have 11 grandchildren. I'm Deacon Phil Harrington.
I'm so sorry. That's my Catholic school heritage. I see the collar and that's it.
I get it. I am the ministry coordinator at St. Mary's on Main Street. And I just have a letter. Last 2 weeks ago, I read a letter from the diocese. And I just want to read my own letter, kind of summing up what has happened in the last couple weeks.
Okay.
And it seems like where we're headed with this.
Sounds good.
So to Mayor Rachel Richards and the Aspen City Council, from myself, Deacon Phil Harrington, regarding the sound stage in Connor Park. A little over a month ago, the redevelopment of Armory Hall, I seem to have become the designated spokesperson for our community within a community, the 500 or so weekly participants and the surrounding neighbors of St. Mary's Catholic Church in Aspen. Most seem of the opinion that any outside music or amplified sound in Connor Park would, in fact, denigrate the historic function of the park as it relates to the Armory Hall redevelopment. That said, it is our intention to continue to listen to this community's concern and begin to hold community meetings at St. Mary's with this stated end in mind. The removal of any rendering of the 12 by 13 foot stage in the landscape architecture documents, and the stated commitment by Aspen City leadership that as contracts for vendors and operators are signed, none will be misled as the city eventually will turn over the function of this property in the future. Thank you in advance for your kind attention to this very serious matter. This St. Mary's community within a community desires to be the good neighbor we have always been for the past 135 years, and I assure you, in the future, you can continue to expect nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Deacon.
Additional public comment.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Ward Hollenstein and live in Aspen. I come to you to ask you to consider getting involved, government involvement in something that doesn't seem to be involved enough in, and that's always a balancing act for electeds as to when you should inject government into issues. And I come to speak to you about e-bikes and e-motos, and what I would like to see you consider is to have alignment up and down the valley for the uses of e-bikes. I know that our Class 3 e-bikes in Newcastle, Rifle, Arapahoe County, a number of municipalities across the state require licensing or a permit. You have to be 16 years of age or older to use a Class 3 e-bike because they go 28 miles per hour, and you see kids on the trails going 28 miles per hour, which is in violation of the speed limits of the trails, but it's a danger, and you can't really blame the kids because their brain doesn't really develop. The frontal cortex doesn't develop to a point where they can make reasoned, rational decisions at their age. So I would like to see alignment up and down the valley for Eagle, Garfield, and Picken County for the use of e-bikes on trails. Category 3 e-bikes or Class 3 would really encourage you to require people to be 16 years of age to have a Class 3 e-bike, and the e-motos that are over 750 watts require licensing and insurance. And I've seen some of those in town that are not licensed. And also, I would like to see children under the age of 18 have to wear helmets. And I know it's that which governs best governs least, and I think that there's a time when government should get involved for public safety and be proactive rather than reactive. We don't want to react to this after we've had some traumatic head injuries and injuries. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for that, Ward, and not to diminish your comment, because I think a lot more work has to be done, but RAFTA has been convening a trails task force to try to come up with standards throughout the rail corridor. So they've been working a little bit with our Parks Department, Picken County Rangers, and then others, their own RAFTA Rangers in that area. But I agree with you entirely, and I don't think it's anywhere near enough. I think some RAFTA board members have talked about speed cameras that they have when they saw them in Europe in some very bicycle-friendly places. And I was reading an article this weekend about a community that's taking it up as a city council to talk about these exact same issues you've raised. And the quote that stuck with me was one of the staff members kind of saying, we're seeing all sorts of vehicles, motorized vehicles, that don't fit into traditional boxes. And there's just more and more variations on that and where they're allowed, not allowed. I think we've all seen them on the sidewalks here instead of, in the streets where bikes are supposed to be, going in the wrong direction, and kids with no helmet. I mean, I saw a little series with parents leading their kids down the sidewalk on their bikes not long ago, and it's kind of crazy. And I've heard locals tell me they no longer feel comfortable walking on the Rio Grande Trail because it's too dangerous, or riding their bike there. They have to leave our town to safely feel they can ride a bike.
Yeah, just.
So I think we're all taking your comment very, very seriously.
Just a parting shot here that you can have regulations, but how do you enforce them? And I would suggest that the only way to really enforce them is to enforce the speed limits on the bike paths.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much. Is there additional public comment for the meeting tonight? Okay, I am not seeing anyone online either. I do not see any hands up. I will close the public comment section of the meeting. Thank you very much. We will take your comments under very careful consideration.
Really appreciate that. I'll leave a copy of that.
Okay, thank you for that. We will now go on to special orders of the day, the council members and mayor's comments. Who on the board would like to start? Sam?
Yeah, just a touching personal note. Very sorry for missing the meeting yesterday. I was on a plane. Pretty amazing what you can do with Starlink, but illegal to be on Zoom and actually making comments as much as I wanted to. When it came to the bollard system, I know I just spoke to you right before. Yeah, on the street art. My position is that we should look into it more as far as seeing what other options there are between that and pedestrian and vehicle safety downtown. So I think staff will look into that. And with that, just a personal note that, crazy enough, I got married yesterday.
Yay.
Yeah. I say this as much as plain speak as I can. My mom is terminally ill with cancer. She's in hospice care. Flew home on Saturday, came back yesterday evening, and was having a wedding in October still, but was able to get married with my mom present and alive still. So it was very meaningful yesterday. And yeah, truly wonderful to be back here and to be married to my loving wife now. So I'm very touched and very happy that we were able to get over the finish line with my mom. So
We're all sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
And that was really the brave and the right choice to make for your mom. And I just applaud you for your bravery and your family ties.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. Additional.
Love that.
Did you have it? Yeah, no, I didn't think so. Any comments, board member comments on this side?
I do have two comments.
Please.
Congratulations, and I'm sorry on both highs and lows. Thank you for sharing that with us. And then following up on Ward's comment, this is something I've been thinking about it's one of the topics that I hear most about is e-bikes and e-bike safety. And so I'd propose maybe having a work session on what we could do at the council level in terms of regulations, whether it is additional regulations, maybe age limits for e-bikes, requirements for helmets, just kind of running over what's within our realm, and additionally what we might be able to lobby at the state level in terms of e-bike regulations.
Yeah, that would be a good one, and given that we're having the CAS meeting down in Carbondale Thursday, Friday, I'll bring that up to see if that might be something they'd be interested on their legislative agenda this session. John?
Yeah, Sam, I too was moved by what you just shared with us. That was beautiful. Yeah, thanks. Wanted to talk a little bit about fires. They seem to be getting closer to home. Locally, we've had the South Canyon, the Lake Christine, and the Willow Fire over in Leadville. Leadville Fire just this summer, and just this week there's been one between Triangle Peak and Rudai. Thank God for our hasty team that got right on that. But I haven't forgotten about the Pacific Palisades Fire, the Lahaina Fire, Jasper, Alberta, and Ruidoso, New Mexico last year, very similar resort communities to us. And now with fires threatening, a large part of Spokane, Washington got burned. Reno right now is on fire with over 90,000 people in evacuation. I'm really glad to look out the window here and recognize what the fire treatment looks like because of Shadow Mountain. It's also happening over on Smuggler, and I'm really grateful for that. I want to talk about water now. This is from the Roaring Fork Conservancy, and this is as of August 20th. Rivers in the Roaring Fork watershed are as low as 17% of normal for this time of year. The Roaring Fork River right now near Aspen is at 11 cubic feet per second. The average for this time of year is 56. The Frying Pan at Meredith is at 18 cubic feet per second. The average for this time of year is 99. And the Crystal River at the hatchery above Carbondale is at 16 cubic feet per second, and the average is 94. All of Pitkin, Eagle, and Lake counties are still in D4, exceptional drought, the highest level of drought that we have the ability that is on the scale. Most of Chaffee County, Summit, and Grand County, Huerfano, and Alamosa counties are also in D4, as well as parts of 11 other counties. Right now, Rudai Reservoir is at 51% of capacity. And as predicted, we stopped producing electricity there earlier this month. Blue Mesa, our largest reservoir in the state, just over the Elk Mountains in Gunnison County, is at 24% of capacity. It's scheduled to stop producing electricity this December. Lake Powell, 22% of capacity, also scheduled to stop producing electricity this December. These problems are getting closer to us. And I don't, as good as I feel about what we do at this table, I really don't think we're moving fast enough. But I'm grateful for the cloud cover. That's all I've got for tonight.
Thank you, John. Well, a lot of serious topics tonight. I have just a few small comments, really kind of based off of some of this. We already finished public comment. Thank you. When I was a county commissioner and we were dealing with state legislation, one of the biggest challenges was getting licensing required for all-terrain vehicles. And this was really coming out of Hinsdale County, Ouray County. They've got the big mineral loops, and they were just having terrible problems with not being able to ticket or license or find out if someone was insured when they would have 3 kids on the back with no helmets, and then they go off the side of the trail. And it was a multiple year effort with the state legislature to try to require some sort of licensing for these rental companies for the safety of the vehicle, the lighting on the vehicle, the helmets, and things like this. So I think this issue is ripe. It is more than ripe now. It's been growing, and I do believe that as much as we do locally, it's really important to kind of come up with something cohesive and comprehensive, as Ward was talking about, in our valley, but also it may take efforts with the state to actually have those authorities to do that. We might, because we're a home rule charter, but I'm not sure other communities would. And then, John, on what you're saying, I think if you look at the news, you'll see that they saw one of the largest chunks of glacier calved off of Greenland today, the size of Manhattan. And so we're just seeing the economy, the ecology just crumble under these heat temperatures, and there's a new heat dome coming for Texas, California, and the Southwest at this point in time. I would like to announce the date of September 18th for those who are interested in these issues, particularly the Colorado River. That is going to be the Fall Colorado River Districts Conference in Grand Junction. It's generally from about 8 to 3 p.m. It's very informative. It is coinciding with the Club 20 weekend and the Club 20 debates for the candidates for state offices and federal offices. But if you want to get the most up-to-date information from Becky Mitchell, who was our negotiator on the Colorado Compact, you may have noticed that Nevada has already started to sue. They do not like the cutbacks that the federal government has handed down. They think Colorado itself should be taking more cuts. And a very interesting little factoid, there's $100 million for paying farmers for fallowing their fields, and there has been that effort in the past. But in Colorado, the only people taking that up are on the west slope. So none of the row crop farmers on the Front Range have contributed to reducing consumption that comes from our side of the hills that fills Lake Powell. So we're trying to see if we can develop better water principles for the west slope specific to us. Rather, there's been a real cooperative spirit with Club 20 and others, with Progressive 15 and or Action 15, Progressive 22, the Front Range rural counties. But those water principles aren't holding up under this sort of pressure that is becoming the east slope and west slope water wars redoubled. So those are the only things I really would make in my mayor's comments this evening. I'm getting a little tired of hearing him use the word monsoon, because we're not seeing any monsoons. Maybe we'll get summer rain showers in the future, but let's stop bumping it up that there's a monsoon season here, because it has not been hitting us. And that is all on that portion of the agenda. We would now go to any agenda amendments.
There are no amendments for tonight.
Thank you very much. Do you have any city manager comments for us tonight, Pete?
3 quick items.
Please,
First
take your
is we have another Saturday market coming up on the 29th. Councilmember Doyle will be there present with our APSHA team and Kids First. And folks are definitely welcome to stop by, ask questions, share ideas, give feedback, and we'll have parties there listening in. We also have open seats on boards and commissions. These advisory groups really play an important role in shaping the city policies and reviewing projects and making recommendations on topics that impact the city's future. So would really love to have folks consider putting in applications for these. Their application period is open until September 9th, and you can find more information on that on aspen.gov under boards and commissions. And lastly, we have our 4th annual Cultural Vibrancy Fellowship Program that is now taking applications. We are looking for aspiring and established artists ages 14 and older who live, work, or attend school within the Aspen urban growth boundary. Applications are open through the 24th and can be submitted online on our website. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Pete. We would now go to board reports. John, I'll start on your side. If you have any since our last meeting?
I do.
Okay.
Had a Sister Cities meeting August 13th. No, but it is now. Thanks. We had a Sister Cities meeting August 13th. There is a 60th anniversary celebration of our Sister Cities partnership with Garmisch happening September 24th, and there's a tremendous amount of planning that's going into it. The group from Germany is arriving on Tuesday the 21st. The main event is on Thursday the 24th at Pepke Auditorium. The public is invited to attend. It's also scheduled to coincide with the 26th Oktoberfest that Snowmass has been putting on. There will be a Sister Cities tent on the Snowmass Mall during that Oktoberfest. And let's see, October 10th to the 24th is a Bariloche Student Exchange. And one of our representatives went to Davos because that Sister Cities relationship has kind of been faltering, and she went there to try and rebuild it, and her response was there was very little enthusiasm.
Yeah, well, you have to have a citizen group
Right.
to make it happen.
And then I attended an APSHA meeting on the 19th. It was short because we were scheduled to have a hearing that was postponed, and so that shortened our meeting quite a bit. But there's going to be a coffee at Aspen Country Inn tomorrow morning at 8:30. The website, our new website, launched on Monday. I haven't checked it out, but I'm assuming that is true. We discussed decreasing work hours again. We just discussed it. We decided we wanted to check with other like communities and see how it plays out. Also because of the airport closure, that entered the conversation. We're going to keep bidding the same. You can bid one category up. We talked about leaving units to grandkids, which was awkward, but we also brought up the fact that there were rules in place to leave units to siblings, and that seemed kind of unusual too. So we're still working on that, but I think we're just going to leave it vertically from parents to children, and that's it. We got a budget update, and we approved the work plan. That's it for APSHA.
Thank you. Christine, do you have anything you wanted to add on that? And Sam?
Yeah, Nordic Council meeting. Parks here at the city has been adding wood chips in spots that had a tough time holding snow. It's supposed to be better for it. They're also adding a small hill feature on the golf course Nordic Trail that AVSC can especially benefit from for training purposes. Cozy Point Ranch is getting some Nordic opportunities worked on this summer for this winter, possibly a future biathlon venue with laser rifles. Apparently biathlon was like one of the most popular sports at the most recent Winter Olympics, and AVSC I think has 5 laser rifles at this point for this sort of thing. This would be a 3-kilometer trail, 8 feet wide, and apparently there was a lot of feedback from Woody Creek area and people more down valley that they wanted something that was closer to that region that held snow more than like coming up to the golf course. So it should open up opportunities for people in that regard. Also, once fire restrictions ease, a great word here, a masticator will be coming through to clear trees for a new path easement on Owl Creek, West Buttermilk. This is the VIII property. It's across from the Fisters, and it will be a new easement trail for our Nordic system. And lastly, I already mentioned the French laser rifles, but AVSC has 5. There's 20-plus kids signed up for that. There was interest or talk about Nordic Council potentially helping get more laser rifles for the community, but also at the same time, I directed AVSC to our grants program to potentially put in for a grant request for more laser rifles, given the popularity of the program. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Now, where would it be in the Woody Creek area?
Sorry, it was the Cozy Point Ranch, but it was the Woody Creek residents and people more in that area that would be very excited about Cozy Point Ranch, so they don't need to come up and get part of the traffic congestion heading to like the golf course or something like that.
Okay, got it. I'm sorry, I missed that part.
No, all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really am not seeing a lot of meetings I had since our last regular meeting. I was able to slip in for a few minutes of the Sister City meeting, but then went over to the Red Brick for their art opening on Thursday the 13th. And I think I see a few members here in the audience and who are on our board who were attending Jim True's retirement party at the Wheeler Opera House on Friday, celebrating great service, great friendship, and great leadership that Jim True has demonstrated throughout our community. The Risotto Festival, I have a hard time with pronunciation, Risotto. And my mind sees it, my mouth doesn't do it very well. And I attended pretty much all of that throughout the holiday, the Friday and Saturday sessions. And it really, especially with the daily news story today about a local resident who'd been abducted by ICE, brought home the real challenges this community is facing, the Hispanic Latino community. The festival brings together people of all sorts of ethnic backgrounds from the Americas and leaders in their industry, in whether it's acting or commercial businesses or other types of legal endeavors. And just to hear a community that feels that the country they grew up in is trying to erase them and to erase their history and remove them from having meaning and status in the American society, it's really heart-wrenching. And, you know, for me, I'm just looking forward to November because this has got to stop. This is destruction to our economy. We kind of see the ICE deportations and know how horrible those are, ripping families apart and attacking given communities based on skin color. But there's additional damage of people just choosing to self-deport and close their business and go back to their home country where they have a home. And they were well enough off to start a business in our country, but they are closing them because they do not like the treatment and the way the Americas have gone. So, you know, everybody watches the snow for the economy, and I sure do too. But more than ever, I'm starting to watch what we're doing nationally that is going to ruin our economy and put under threat the economy of our community. We're again seeing the Canadian tariffs, and the message was Vegas is going to try and tell the Canadians, please keep coming. We really need you. We really like you. And yet last year, there was all the ski resorts on the East Coast on the border with Canada saying their sales to Canadians had just dropped off the track. And I think that we're seeing that same sort of thing. To make America, the United States of America, someplace that no one wants to visit seems to be a national pastime now at the highest levels. And that has me very concerned about our economy, about the treatment of a large segment of our community, probably 1/6 of the American economy and 1/6 of the population is Hispanic and Latino leaders and hardworking people, and we need to find ways to show greater empathy and action with the challenges that they are facing. Those are my thoughts for today. Thank you for letting me let that out. We will now move on to the consent calendar. And the first item up is the as soon as possible resolution, which continues to move forward Aspen's Sustainability Action Program and the draft minutes of August 11th. I'll see if there's any motions first, and then we'll have comments. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Any council member comments on either of the two items? John.
Yeah, I just want to state my appreciation for our sustainability department and the plan that they put forward. Aspen continues to lead, and I'm, again, pleased to be part of a city government that takes climate change seriously.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I also am very supportive of this and the department's work going forward. The one thing I think, and this is not a reason not to pass this tonight, but I'd love to see us add something on in the future, really kind of talking a little more about the city's infrastructure. And, you know, we've had requests, can we get all our street lights to, or stop, you know, the light lights, not stoplights, to be solar. And of course, we're not going to just trash good stuff now. That's wasteful too. But what is our transition on some of our city infrastructure? And, you know, Building IQ kind of focuses on buildings, and it makes it feel as if the city's infrastructure is separate from that. So it was just a section I would like to see us add in the future. I know there's efforts going on there, but it'd be nice to catalog them and track them going forward.
And how that ties into our hopeful dark sky initiative.
And how that may tie into our dark sky initiative. Good point, John. So with that, if there's no other comments, will you call the roll on the consent calendar, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your work on that. It's really nice. There is a notice of call-up, Resolution Number 12, Series of 2026, 880 Meadows Road, Certificate of Appropriateness for Major Development Plan Conceptual, Commercial Design Review, Stream Margin Review, and Insubstantial Plan Development Amendment. And we have Dan here to chat with us about this notice of call-up.
I have a brief presentation here to show you what the project is all about.
Okay.
Join in here. All right, so as you said, Mayor, we're here to give you a notice of approval from the Historic Preservation Commission, and this is for a building over on the Aspen Meadows campus. It's the Resnick Malik Health Club. So here's an image of it from 1956. If you read the report, you saw that it opened in 1955. Was designated as an Aspen Modern resource in 1996. It was designed by Herbert Beyer with Fritz Benedict as the associate architect. So it's really a real gem of our community. So on June 24th of this year, the Historic Preservation Commission did approve Resolution 12, Series of 2026, and it approved essentially 4 components of this project. So it was a certificate of appropriateness for a major development concept review, the commercial design review, stream margin review, and then it required an insubstantial amendment to the plan development. Let me just give you an overview of the project. So on the left, you see kind of the existing plan view of the health club. So the areas in green are what will be removed. And so the project involves removing additions that were made after they're considered non-historic additions. There's going to be replacement of some doors and windows. They're going to do some reconfiguring around the pool and the spa area. And so the green will be removed. The yellow represents the new addition. There's no increase in square footage. Here's a architectural elevation view of the project. So on top is existing. You can see on the left in green is the area where they're going to be removing parts of the building. There's kind of an overhead door there now. And on the bottom, you'll see what it'll look like from the front with the replacement, the new addition. It's a more compatible concrete. I can't really describe exactly the materials, but it's a concrete block with those clear story windows on top, which you find throughout the building. Next, we've got kind of another rendition. Again, the new addition is in yellow, so this is as you would view it from the front of the building. That's the gym in the center with all the glass windows. And then we have some other views from kind of I guess what would be the south and the west. So looking from the west on the top, and then from the south, again, this is at the rear of the health club. Quite compatible, those additions. And then this is the other component of it. It is located within the stream margin, and we have a 10-foot setback from the top of that stream margin. And so there are some things that are encroaching. So on the left, you can see that spa, a portion of it encroaches into that 10-foot setback. So they're going to relocate that spa, so that'll be removed from the stream margin. On the right, you see a small wall with a gate, and that's represented on the left below. That will remain, but that's an existing improvement. Okay. So there are removal out of the stream margin, which we also believe is a really positive component of this project. And so that's the overview of it. Again, if you don't want to call this up for your consideration, there's no action required tonight. If you did want to hear it, you would have a motion to set a date, I believe, for that consideration.
Okay, thank you. Council members, is there any interest in calling this up?
None.
No, I did not think so either. I think it is good work by our HPC. But let me ask you one question, Dan. Is the health club there for the guests of the hotel at the Meadows? Or is it there for, are there memberships sold throughout the community as well?
I'm actually not sure. I don't know. Somebody from the team, we have folks.
There for use of the hotel guests, and there are memberships that are sold to the local community.
Okay, thank you.
I said didn't get picked up. So yeah, it's both for hotel guests and there are memberships available to members
Great.
of the community.
Great. Yeah, I just kind of want to make a comment. I am not going to call this up. We went through some very lengthy hearings, we all remember, on the Meadows and the Institute and the Music Festival and the Physics earlier this spring. And it has struck me that while we were in those reviews, it was not busy season. There was not a lot of programming. And since then, I have heard from individuals about the concern about the hired transport companies, and that they do not necessarily follow particular fixed routes, or they're running back and forth just for one person at a time. And then that's kind of multiplied by the various hotel shuttles that bring people in from other hotels for activities, Ideas Fest or Design Fest. And management of that transportation was not brought up by any of the citizen letters, by our staff, or us, to be able to think about conditions on the Aspen Institute. And I just want to say that I have had a sit down with Crystal to talk to her about, can we develop a better management plan that reduces the kind of hurrying and scurrying of a lot of these different vehicles, and come up with some fixed routes that we would expect, whether it's a van from Snowmass from a hotel, or a van from the Gantt or the Alps, bringing people over, that we try to minimize the transportation impacts. So much of it seemed to have just focused on the MAA parking lot. And so this is just my plea to the members who are here with the Institute to take this kind of concern seriously for the planning for next summer. And with our transportation department, feel free to work with us. We're there to help out. And otherwise, there is no call-up. And thank you very much for the presentation, and thanks HPC for their work.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is first reading of ordinances, and we have none. The next item is a public hearing on ordinance number 17, series of 2026, proposed changes to amend the home rule charter for the city of Aspen from the current March election potentially to November, to line up with the coordinated elections in the county. I want to go ahead and say we have a number of attachments and memos on this, and we're going to hear the staff report for the public and such. Our clerk and other offices have brought up some concerns with the additional elements that are needed to be worked out, and particularly the question of a runoff, or how a runoff is conducted and the timing of a runoff is conducted. And I just want to go ahead and put it out there as we begin this discussion for those watching on TV or here to view, that I at least have been kind of asked by our staff to consider, should we put this on the March election for changes, that when it's a city-only vote, so that there be more time to gather community input about how to have a runoff. Is it a primary preferred? Is the county even set up to do instant runoff voting, or ranked choice voting, if that's what people would prefer, versus a runoff? And what I want to just emphasize for everyone is that this coming March city council elections would not be affected if we put something on this November's ballot or not. So putting something on this ballot this year or in March would still all be about taking effect at the following November election in 2028. So the delay does not delay a change from ever occurring, if that's what the voters should choose, but it may not be something that is fully baked to go on the ballot this November. But I think if it's not, and we're not able to reach that consensus, then we would expect a lot of real serious work to be done between now and needing to set a ballot for March by the end of December. So there's going to be some really careful timelines there to do this sort of community outreach, discuss the implications. We've had some people say, hey, it's okay, just do one ballot and have no runoff. And I have felt very uncomfortable with that as a process. I would not want to move it to November at all if we were doing it with no runoff. I, as most people know, was mayor in 1999 to 2001. It was a plurality election. And when you're elected in a plurality position, it encourages people just to crowd the field to try to have minority single point issues prevail. In a crowded field of 5, 10 people, 5, 6 people running for mayor, you could have a mayor elected with 22% of the vote. I was elected before in 99 with, I think it was either 35 or 36%, but it really brought into question the legitimacy of a mayor who 2/3 of the people didn't have a chance to vote for in a runoff or didn't have was not their first choice. So those sort of things are important to me. But beyond that, I'm going to be quiet and let Jim and Alyssa do their, but I wanted to give a little bit of the preamble here that we have heard concerns from staff and others behind the scenes about how do you really work out these details and be able to present the details honestly and in a transparent way for the public to understand. There we go. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm James R. True. I guess I'm called intermittent special counsel now.
Yeah, you're special counsel now.
And I appreciate the comment about my party. I appreciate everybody coming to that. It came. I am following up on this item as it was something that I had.
Jim, is your microphone really close enough? They're not. Whenever I see grassroots coming out of the studio booth, you know that microphones aren't working.
I knew it was on.
There you go.
But staff has discussed this a great deal since our, since the August 11th meeting. And we do not have a significant presentation to make today. You have raised the significant question that exists here, which is whether you want to attempt to have a runoff in a November election, which has significant issues, practical and otherwise. We've tried to outline those in the memo discussing the voter turnout and how voter turnout in November is significantly greater. Nobody can really debate that. It's 30, 40% greater than a typical March election would be, a November of an even year. So we presented this data. We presented the issues and the problems with having a runoff after a November election. So it comes down to a determination that you need to make whether you want to put something on the ballot for council or for the electorate this November, or whether you wish to further consider it and put it on the ballot in March. Again, the March election would have a less turnout, but that is something that you would need to decide. You can certainly do more work to determine what all the pluses, minuses, and everything for an attempted runoff after a November election, because it does have significant issues. You've pointed out the problems with plurality. I've tried to, used your election in the memo as an example, and I think you won by 14 votes with 32% of that vote.
See you.
But
My memory's slipping.
No. But you can, no. And it was a 1999 election. But the more people, you can obviously pull that down to even a smaller minority. Do you we've emphasized again that the runoff has only changed the result twice in 20-something years. So that's well, you were a beneficiary of it, but as was Ward, who's in back here. But it's 20-some years and 2 changes. So that's a factor too. We get concerned about if you have a runoff in following the November election, no way you can avoid it. It will interfere or run over
Thanksgiving week
holidays.
would be the first day
you
for
pushed it
turning in
further.
ballots
Right.
for early voting.
Right, early voting.
And so getting election judges at that point in time is challenging potentially.
Yeah,
Right.
there's significant challenges. I do want to say something that's important with your moving this election to March. It will change or may change how the transition exists
Oh,
for
okay.
elected people. But the first time you could have one is in November of 2028. That does not change. If you put this on the ballot and it passes, first election's November 28.
That it would
If you-
affect those terms.
But if you put it on the ballot in March, the first election is November 2028. The transitions of various elected people's different, or may be different, but the first election's still in 2028.
Right.
November of 2028. So Alyssa was trying to jump in with a couple of things, and I wanted to get that point out, or I'd forget it.
Okay.
So
Point.
There you
Thank
go.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, very much enjoyed your party. It was
thank you.
And Alyssa, for the record, Alyssa Farrell, Administrative Services Director. Our mayor mentioned the conversations of staff have had and some looking at the entire holistic approach with one of our really critical elections. One of our really important community benefits is our election, and we take that very seriously. Further recognizing the community survey, a very limited but insightful feedback, kind of an elevator, a starting point, if you will, promoting the November election, moving this to March in terms of giving staff more time to work with our communications department and gather more pros and cons and more options, as well as interaction with Pitkin County and the community would be beneficial in bringing back further pros and cons and more of a deeper dive, if you will, could be advantageous to make a very much an informed decision for this community. As our mayor mentioned, some considerations that we've discussed include gathering election staff and election judges. That really is important to ensure the transparent process, engaging the volunteers to process the ballots during the holiday period. I just want to recognize it may be challenging during that time period with election judges, and that would potentially place additional administration responsibilities on the clerk's office and their staff and their team. I also wanted to point out just the voter participation considerations, as our mayor mentioned. Early voting would begin 15 days prior to the election, and this is stated in the memo as well. So if we hold the election on the second Tuesday of December, that would mean that early person voting actually begins on the Monday of Thanksgiving week. So an additional consideration, giving us time to consider conversations with Pitkin County and going more in depth with their court staff could be helpful as we weigh the pros and cons for consideration. So again, considering the election timing is something that we take really seriously, and we want to do what's in the best interest of the community to the extent we can, and providing you really extensive and thorough pros and cons is our ultimate goal. And of course, we will follow our direction that we're given.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions for our staff presentation or from the memo here at the table?
No questions.
Okay. I will then open the public hearing. I know we have people here in the audience who would like to make comments on this matter, and we're here to listen. Please, if you'd like to come up.
Good evening,
Evening.
Mayor and City Council. I am Elizabeth Siegel. I live in Aspen, and I definitely support moving the local election date to November for one overriding reason. It will increase voter turnout. The data compiled by the city clerk shows a considerable disparity in turnout comparing the March local election to the November federal election, and public opinion overwhelmingly supports the move. So why do I care? I have studied American government for years. I have worked in all three branches of the federal government. When I lived in DC, I have taught American government at CMC several times, and I lecture annually on important Supreme Court cases. The next lecture is September 4th at the library, 5 o'clock. Please come. The current erosion in our federal system is due in part to voter apathy, which is bad and should be reversed. So why is it important? Voter turnout is the foundation of our democracy. The higher the turnout, the more it reflects a vibrant and engaged electorate. It begins at the local level. Here in Aspen, we have an informed community, certainly an opinionated community, and with mail-in voting, which is sort of on the edge, but hopefully will survive, and with mail-in voting as it is now, it's very easy and safe to cast a vote. But we also have a lot of elections: federal, state, county, city, school board, fire district, hospital board, to name most of them. Hopefully it's just not a few. Combining the local election with the November federal election is an important step to combine the issues to the voters at the time they are most likely to vote. The results can only be positive, and that's why I support placing this change in date on the November ballot when more people are voting, and I will strongly advocate for its adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I personally agree with having a November election. Linda, were you coming up as well?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Linda Manning. There are just a few additional things I wanted to address tonight. I know there's been a lot of weight given to the community survey, but I don't think the survey asked the right question. You know, the question asked by the survey was, should we coordinate a single election in November, combining the city of Aspen election with Pitkin County? It didn't really address a runoff situation. No. So when I read this, I'm like, sure, let's move it to November, not contemplating that there would be a runoff. Mm-hmm. And that's my issue with the ballot language for alternate number 1. Unless you read that ordinance, you have no idea that the runoff is going to be in December. And I guarantee the majority of the people who vote aren't going to have read that ordinance beforehand. So if you do move forward with an alternate 1 ballot language, I suggest that somewhere in there it adds language that the runoff will be moved to December, just so it's completely transparent that that's what's happening. I have talked with the county election staff several times. Just, you know, I'm in that office all the time, and we always chat about elections and what's going on. And, you know, I was the one who brought up to staff about the potential conflict with the county not certifying the election with their canvass until after the date that the city would mail ballots. And while the memo did say that technically it could be done, it's bad optics to do that. Yeah. Elections are supposed to be as transparent as any event is. And, you know, what Clint brought up today was, if a recount is initiated, that they have until the second week of December to finalize that recount. Mm-hmm. So at that point, the election could have happened and the county's still recounting ballots. I mean, that's just not a very good look. I mean, if plurality is an issue, you know, are we still set on a 45% threshold or a 50% threshold? I mean, when we're voting on ballot questions, they can win by 1 vote. I mean, the red brick purchase passed by 3 votes, and no one said, "Oh, wait, it was so close. We should do that again."
But it was a majority.
But, I mean,
it was 50% plus 1.
At what point do you say, you know, we won? Snowmass is doing that in November. You know, whoever wins in their 5 council person election, the top two are going to be council people. So it's not unheard of in this valley. Ballot tracks is valid. Nicole brought that up. That's a great service that the county offers that the city doesn't. There is voter confusion. I work the county elections, and people are always trying to drop ballots off at the city and vice versa. It just, I just think if it's a concern, then go with the primary system. I mean, it exists. The county is already doing the primary. Yes, it stretches out Aspen's election season from June through November, but it avoids the runoff, and the county's already doing it. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have additional public comment in the room?
Good evening. My name is Still Ward Howenstein, for the record. I'm here to encourage the November election on even years. I don't need to rehash that it increases turnout substantially. I personally feel that the option that was first in the memo that has the runoff is the way to go. Runoffs allow people to drill down on the issues across the board instead of having a number of single issue candidates. And it's always been that things you don't want to watch being made or sausage in the laws, but I think increasingly it's elections as well. It's become a pretty much a mess. And I think that the Aspen electorate has enough bandwidth to focus on national, state, and local issues. I think that we can trust our electorate to make the right decision, and I think that the runoffs are important. I understand there are challenges. There are always challenges to things, and it might create more work for the clerk's office, but I think that fundamental issue for any elected body is the election, and November gives a best turnout, and a runoff gives more time to drill down on the issues. And I would encourage putting this on the ballot for this November and getting it done and giving time to work on it until the November 2028 election rolls around.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Siegel?
Neil Siegel, Aspen. I also am here to support the change for the local election to be in November, and would urge council to put the matter on the ballot in November. I also support retaining a runoff for both mayor and city council. And the reason I support that is because I think that a runoff allows the winning candidates to say that they have a mandate. And I think in this situation, in a local election, a mandate is very important going forward, given the fact that many of the issues have local character associated with them. And so therefore, I think that a runoff is important. I also think that deferring this matter to March is a very bad mistake. Recognizing that there are some administrative burdens and the like, if you put this matter off until March, you're having an election where the least amount of people voting are going to vote on the most important issue. So while there are difficulties presented, administrative difficulties, why not put an important measure on the ballot at a time when the most people are going to vote on it? That seems to make the most sense. Let me talk about two issues kind of at the back of the book here. One is, it's been said that these local issues get shoved to the back of the ballot and therefore they get lost. Well, that's just a simple matter of voter education. The city, as it can do, can send a flyer or publish in the local papers a portion of the ballot itself, just simply highlighting where these local issues are going to appear on the ballot that they're going to receive in the mail. It certainly can't tell people how to vote for those issues, but it can tell them where they appear on the ballot. And, you know, as Kate knows, when you're in a jury trial, one of the things you do at the end of the trial is you pull out the verdict form, and everybody cranes forward because they haven't seen it before, and you tell them what this form is, question by question. And what we could do as advocates that you can't do on the city is we could tell them how to fill it out. But it's the same analogy that applies. Point out where on the ballot these issues are so people aren't going to get lost in a 3-page ballot, something the city can easily do. Second point, it's been said that the character of the local election is lost if it's in November. It's subsumed by all these national issues. And undeniably, there are traits that we should attempt to continue. And one of them is gathering in this room and having the clerk come out with her whiteboard and write in her handwriting, you know, the results. Well, we can continue that. It's kind of a local tradition. And it's simply done by having the county clerk release the results first to the city clerk and have them broadcast here. So I really thank you for taking up and advancing this measure. It's something I've been talking about to Jim and Nicole for over a year. But, you know, to me, it's a very important manifestation that promotes democracy. And now more than ever before, it's really important that this city council continue the leadership it has shown on this issue because, you know, the starting point of all this is the local election. It's the local election, and that's where we should focus our attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and your comments. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to comment? Okay, there being none, and there are none online, as far as I can tell, I will close the public hearing. Let me make sure this isn't going to beep.
Mayor Richards, may I make a
Please, yeah, if you'd like to.
I recognize the comments by Ms. Manning regarding the certification that the county must perform, but we did try to look at this very carefully to make certain that we could make a determination of who would be in the runoff, print the ballots, have the election in the first 2 weeks of December, have the runoff. And that seemed to be the optimum solution if you were to have a runoff in December. If you waited until certification, you're really having the election the first week of January, which I don't think would be an optimum solution. We recognize that there are issues and of concern with again having this runoff over November, but and Thanksgiving in particular. But I did want to note that it would be just a separate difficult problem if you tried to wait until the county certification.
Right.
And we concluded that it was not absolutely necessary. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay.
But I'm not disagreeing with her comments and her points. I just wanted to make those two notes.
Yeah, I can see if you had a runoff situation where there were enough candidates that the top 2 or the top 4 were only separated by a few votes. There might start, and then there was a 5th person that was just by a few votes. You might say, hey, would a certification make a difference?
That's the circumstance, is somebody that misses a runoff,
right,
that has the argument. But it gets complicated.
Yeah,
under any circumstance in
complicated.
any of our runoffs, we can have those complications.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily change that aspect.
Thank you. I'm going to bring it back to council and see what people's thoughts are. Now we've had a pretty thorough memo. We've had some public comment. We've all had times to think about it. There is the one question of do we want to try to push forward this November or wait till March? And then the question of either way, if it goes this November, should it be a ballot with a runoff or without a runoff? John.
Okay, I just want to start with, I am very interested in increasing voter turnout, and I would like to see it aligned with the November election because of all the reasons that we talked about earlier. It's easier to campaign that time of year. Higher voter turnout's the biggest one, though. But with all the comments being made, obviously there's a lot of unintended consequences that are really quite significant. And I think what we do want to avoid is voter confusion by having a county-aligned election and then having a city runoff. I think that is going to confuse people. I think another issue is voter absence because of the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. We might lose all the voters we've gained from moving the election because they're out of town. They didn't get their ballot in time. I just see that as something that we haven't really brought up. I really think it's important to have a runoff. I don't know what kind of runoff that is, but I think the one we're thinking of doesn't seem to be the way that we should be going. I'm wondering if we should adopt a primary system or if there's a way to do the ranked choice voting. I don't really know, but I think putting it on the ballot this November would be rushing something, and this is an issue that nobody's health or safety is on the line with this, and I think we should get this because nobody's health or safety is on the line, and we can take our time and do this right.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you. I, like John, am all for supporting voter turnout and getting as many people at the polls as possible. That was why I was on the committee that originally changed the date from May to March almost 10 years ago. I went back and read some of the articles and research on why our committee chose March instead of November. The three priority dates were actually March, August, and July. And we picked those dates based on information showing on when the most people were in town in the 6 weeks leading up to the election, on election day, and then the month following for a runoff. This information is based off of information from the Consolidated Waste Center, which is how they measure when people are in town. Fun fact for people.
Yeah, no flush.
Yes. We didn't consider November because it's off-season here, and so local candidates would be campaigning to far fewer people than they would during the peak of winter season in March. I give that all as background. Potentially moving the election to November, you get more people at the polls, and I hope that that is true. It is true in the data that we have. But for me tonight, I think there are too many unknowns, and this has moved too quickly for me to support either version of the ordinance and putting this on the November ballot. I think Linda was right in her public comments that the survey question was simple. We all agree that more people should vote in November, but it's our job up here to wade through the nuances of what that means for the public, and I don't think we've done that thoroughly enough to move this forward for me tonight.
Yeah. Thank you. Sam?
Yeah, no, I appreciate your comments, John and Christine. I appreciate that a ton. I think pros and cons list, you go to, November would be higher turnout, unified election, less voter fatigue, and you got ballot tracks. But the cons are kind of these open-ended questions, whether they be rhetorical or not. I'm going to start with the question of, so long as we have mail-in voting, if you had 40% of people voting in March and 80 plus voting in November, where are they in March for something that is as simple as filling out a bubble and sticking it in a ballot box? It's one of those things where I'm so in the nuance, the weeds of this, here sitting on council, that I can't think that way of what it's like to not fill out a ballot that's mailed to your mailbox, whether you ask for it or not. And it's as simple as just filling in a bubble and sticking it in a ballot box that's very much in a small town like ours, not even far away. So I'm just okay, so are they now going to vote in November? Are those 40+% of people now going to research the candidates like they didn't before and vote and know what they're voting on? I can't explain people's behavior, but it's one of those things I think about as far as just why is this a good thing as far as voter turnout if they're not going to do the research to know what they're voting on when it's so easy to vote in March in the first place? So I question that and look for feedback on that more than anything, because I go through this con list as far as, potentially being lost in the federal election, as far as, these local issues that matter tremendously. Potentially it becomes partisan, not, what do you think about the entrance, but who did you vote for? What do you think about this federal issue, red or blue? But more like just like issue based, and then like that's not what local government's necessarily about, even though it obviously translates over and is important. So just less locally focused there. As we talked about the runoff being something that's very important, I think to all, like most of us, it ends up being, the votes go to the county and all these ballot boxes. You can drop them off in so many places, and then the runoff, you only can vote at City Hall. And it ends up being a very confusing atmosphere potentially for that. This was just now public information. I went and talked to our city clerk about, you need election judges. It's not like you couldn't get them, but we already have a system in place in March, and then potentially for a runoff, trying to ask people to be election judges during a certain time of year is questionable, at least at this point in time, and would want to know that we would be good for something like that. And you obviously still need to have all this equipment that you need to maintain. So, but might be less knowledgeable on it if you're not using it because you only get a runoff every so often. Listening to Aspen Public Radio this morning, apparently there's going to be up to 14 citizen voter initiatives on this election ballot here in the state of Colorado. I really, it's funny because we sit up here all the time talking about, oh, crowded ballot, and we're just making a ballot even more crowded for something that, like, oh my God, you have to do so much research to understand these voter initiatives, let alone your state rep, your state senator, your governor, all these things. It's just, it seems kind of like overwhelming. And then like, oh, how about your council members and mayor and what they're talking about? So just get lost in the weeds there, given like where we're at with that. We already talked about issues with certification. I was talking to Nicole about voter roll updates and trying to get this information from the county and like on a daily basis to see voters who voted and that sort of information. And then one last like kind of caveat to all the things I said that seem sort of negative towards November is obviously with the tenuous situation with our Supreme Court and mail-in ballots. One of the things that would change my mind pretty rapidly is if mail-in ballots did get challenged, then I think November would be a have to as far as increasing voter turnout, because then my whole argument goes out the window of how easy it is to vote in March. And it's just like, okay, no, we need to get as many people out there as possible and make it as easy as possible to vote if mail-in ballots do get challenged in the way that they're after them, and which would be unfortunate. So ultimately, I do love the pros of the November election and understand why, but I do think there are too many open-ended questions, and I'm not sure if we're fixing something that's completely broken. I don't know if what would be changed as far as who sits on this council over the last decade if it was November versus March. I do question if some of these bigger initiatives like the entrance and Lift 1A and all those things, if they were done in November, those outcomes might change. I have nothing to prove that, but they might. And those are the type of things that I kind of wish, being here a year, 2 years ago, trying to get the entrance vote on the November election was something that I was thinking about for voter turnout reasons, because that was one of those initiatives that I didn't think it would get lost in the weeds because it was so important to this community and would force people to probably reconcile it a little differently. But otherwise, I don't particularly want to put this on the ballot right now. I really do want more feedback on all these open-ended questions and concerns that I have to be answered before I'd feel comfortable moving forward potentially too rapidly. I appreciate everyone in this room. I mean, everyone that spoke tonight I've known for a long time and talked to, and it's like one of those hard things to look at you guys and be like, I don't want to put it on November right now because I think you're the most wonderful, educated people around, but I don't hear necessarily from the vast majority of our community about this. They got bigger fish to fry than election dates, unfortunately. And I would like to hear from them as far as these very nuanced concerns that make a potential November municipal election challenging.
Yeah, thank you. We've heard a lot of good comments up here and a lot of real concerns. You know, I have to harken back to one of the classes I was able, fortunately, to take at Harvard when I had the scholarship from the Gates Foundation. And in the course of the 3 weeks, we talked about elections and an awful lot about American history. And the one thing that they said was like, look, there's always been some kind of bias in every election, whether it's the date that it's held, whether it's the qualifying process, whether, you know, all sorts of strange nuances. And he gave a lot of history over the time of, you know, whether it was poll taxes or literacy taxes or even the type of SAVE Act we're seeing now to say women can only vote under their birth name, not their married name. You know, I mean, there's always manipulation in elections, and you try to have it as transparent and fair and equal as possible. So that's my goal as well. I think I am going to come down with Sam and others who are saying, let's take a little more time and get this right and shoot for something on the March ballot. But I want to really answer a lot of questions as we do this outreach with the community. And I want to know how many election judges do you need to run a runoff? And what are we paying election judges? And is that sufficient to really make sure we have enough election judges to run a runoff if that's where we end up going? But a lot of these things to me are bumps in the road, but they're not barriers and they're not walls. You know, if you are going to be traveling in December for the holidays, you say, where should we mail my absentee ballot? Because absentee ballots will theoretically still be allowed, just not a general mail-in ballot. But if you're traveling and you're not going to be there, and you know, you line up, and I think our clerk's office has done lots of absentee ballots in the past. Whether or not it's easier to vote in March, just because there's more people here, most of the people I know are working 2 jobs in March. You know, December, March, July, August, the busiest months that we have for work. And so I don't know that it really is easier. It's you know, I don't know if there is an easy or not easy time to vote. People have to want to vote and want to play their role. And you make it easy and convenient for people to vote, and I do think November does that. I don't think the confusion about where to drop your ballot is legitimate. It's more a matter of getting the sign on the ballot box with a map at the beginning of the early voting season, instead of waiting until citizens call you and say, where am I really supposed to drop it? I was just at the county and the box was locked. I mean, it's just more of being ahead of the cycle and having the signage out. And as Mr. Siegel had discussed, having appropriate advertising. These are where you vote. If your ballot hasn't arrived yet, this is who you call to get it. These are the questions of the city. And I think we can promote that more. I've seen a lot of different city clerks and county clerks, and I remember Janice Voss-Caudill would have 3/4 page ads in the papers. You know, this is when the election is. This is your ballot. This is a sample. You know, we encourage enfranchisement, and without any bias or push to vote one way or the other, obviously, but just awareness. And I think that we should invest in that, because the greater the turnout, the better, and the greater public awareness. So messages on the drop box is just something that should be standard operating procedure by now, because we have had different elections, even if they're not on the same day, in different places. And I just have to say, you know, ballots are lengthy. It's a once a year, or should be a once a year thing if it's in November. But I've seen very lengthy ballots where the questions that are good to pass, passed, and the ones that don't. You know, and I've seen people like, oh, we don't want to put it on because there's already 2 tax questions, and so I'll wait till next year. Well, there's 2 more tax questions the next time. And I've seen people put 5 different tax questions on, and they all pass, you know. And so, you know, it's more about what the issue really is about and how people feel about it and how well they recognize the need for it is whether it passes or not. And I think, again, whether it's a healthy community fund and other types of really lengthy questions, you know, that the county has had in the past, or the city with the healthy rivers on the same year as the county road mill levy, and then the healthy community fund. And, you know, there's always lengthy questions, and 1 or 2 get a lot more promotion because they have a big support group, and others people are like really ready to vote for it because I know it's on the ballot finally. I've wanted it to be on the ballot for a while. So I'm not worried about lengthy ballots. I don't think most people get in the weeds. If they do, they call people to ask you or me or someone else or their other neighbor, how are you voting on this one? What do you think? What does the Democratic Party say? What does the Republican Party say? What does the blue book say that you got in the mail that describes the pro and cons on all the questions? So I think there's a lot more prep for people to understand the questions going into a November election than there necessarily is in March. You know, because there is none of that state materials and state push to get out there and decide. And there's going to be a lot of questions to decide this November. And so as we go out, again, I'm not going to support putting it on this November's ballot for the reasons that I've learned from my staff and from members of the public and wanting to really answer those questions. But this is a really odd one to say, but is it possible for the city to hold a primary and then say, these are the people to go forward onto the county November ballot and not have to have it in, you know, start in March, end up in June, you know, things like this? So let's investigate different ways to do a primary. So maybe it wouldn't have to be coordinated with the county primary. It would still be 2 different locations, but it wouldn't be a 9-month election. Because if you're running for the primary in June, you actually start running 2 months before then, you know, and then to make the primary and then to make the election. So that would be totally unacceptable to me, to have a 9-month race for what is considered a part-time job that's not even 20 hours a week and a relatively low salary compared to what you spend on a campaign to get elected. I mean, that's another thing you really should consider, is how much longer people have to raise and spend money if you're having a 9-month election with a primary that you start in March, you vote in June, and then you don't even finish till November. I think that for a small town, that is not small town stuff anymore. And so, Jim, I'm just going to have to ask you, will you give us the timelines of when we need to have this decided to be on the March ballot, and the path that, it doesn't have to be now, can be afterwards in a memo, the path that the staff is going to take to be able to answer all these questions? And, you know, I think that at some level, you probably need some narrative with the questions. It can't be just, do you want to run off or not? It's more of what are the pros and cons of runoffs, what has happened when there's a plurality election, what are the potentials, or, you know, and we can do some focus groups. I think the Chamber of Commerce might be willing to help you out, get to some of their members, other organizations. But again, this is a little more city focused than their broader reach sometimes. Do we need a motion, or do we just let this lie to take this off the agenda? I mean, I don't think it's a motion to deny.
Correct. I don't think you need any motion at this point. If they don't pass its second reading, it's not an effective ordinance. And so I guess if there's no motion to approve either alternative 1 or alternative 2 of ordinance 17, and there's no motion to continue them to a future date, my understanding is that they just sort of die. Is the only word I can think of.
Okay, so council members, you've all heard that potential direction. Would we just like to let this die at the table?
Died in committee.
died in committee. Okay. At the state, they call it PI'd, or tabled indefinitely. So again, appreciate everyone's comments on this. The goal is to have continued outreach. Perhaps some of you will be interested in helping us with that outreach, to be able to have this in time for the March election, and that really is not far away from now. Okay. Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate that.
Okay.
And Alyssa,
Thank you.
the last thing we have on our agenda is the appointment recommendation for APSHA. And I think we had the two candidates. I'm sorry, my screen is blanked off before. I would accept a motion for the appointment of moving our alternate into the full-time voting position. And then if there's council agreement, to appoint the other fellow who applied to the alternate position.
Yeah, I'll make that motion with Jacqueline Matthews going to the regular member and Nathan Bachamp going to the alternate member of the APSHA board.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comments? Just thank them both for applying, and Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. How are you doing? And I think that just about brings us to the end of our regular agenda, other than we are going to have an executive session, and I will let our city attorney give us all the appropriate citations.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, staff is requesting an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Section 24-6-402, subsection 4, subsection A, the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real personal or other property interests, except that no executive session shall be held for the purpose of concealing the fact that a member of the local public body has a personal interest in such purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale. Subsection 4, subsection B, conferences with an attorney for the local public body, with the local public body for purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. And subsection 4, subsection E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. The specific items of discussion involve the following: the lease, transfer, or acquisition of real property or property interests, and contract negotiations and communications with counsel regarding such subjects due to market forces, negotiation strategies, and confidentiality demands of the parties involved, and necessitated by the subject of the specific legal advice, which further disclosure would be a detriment to the city's strategic position. The exact property location will not be disclosed. And the second item is the Centennial Owners Association versus City of Aspen et al., case number 2015 CV 030158. And it was otherwise previously known as 2017 CA 2099. So those are the two items we would like to discuss.
Thank you very much for that, Kate. Is there a motion to go into executive session based on the citations of the city attorney?
So moved.
Okay, Christine will give it to you, and John's the second. They all three seconded it. No.
Almost said something.
And if you'll call the roll, please.
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much.
And for the record, we will convene out of Electric Pass. There's no further business on your agenda, and so there will be no further meeting. And Grassroots, I think, will leave us at this point in time.
Thank you, Grassroots.
And recording will be kept of this executive session with the city clerk for not less than 90 days.